So, welcome Peter Paanakker and welcome also Katarina Lundblad. We have been talking a little bit before here to land together, and would you like to say something about that, and perhaps what you like to say something about who you are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks first of all, asking me. It was interesting. Yes, we talked for I think 10 minutes, and when you just said my name, it was very interesting because my name is Peter Paanakker, but I was called Peter Panic. That's because I was so much in panic, and basically because I asked you, let's talk before we do the interview, because I know panic so well, and now it's changed a bit, but I need them to relate first, to talk a bit. How are you doing? How's Katarina doing? So I know it for myself, especially being called Peter Panic, which I hated for a long time. So if I say something about myself, panic has been with me for all my life. And I hated it. I did everything out of the book to try to be calm and to be masculine and not to show panic. So that's what and it took a lot of years and a lot of, I think it took a lot of energy, because I wanted to change something which was down there always. And I think that's the theme from the workshop also, because for me, when I got very ill, I realized it doesn't work that way. When I fight that panic part in me, it doesn't work that way. And then it took a lot of years to realize that I maybe can embrace that part in me. So maybe it makes a bit sense what I say to you guys, and the ones who are listening, and maybe notice that there is a part in you that you can't control. It just comes up. And I wanted to control Peter Panic. I desperately wanted to control him. And it took some time to realize that doesn't work. So the journey where we're sitting now is to talk about how can you relate to a part, especially that's not easy to relate to, and that shows itself all the time, also when you practice mindfulness. Of course, it's not only when I do something which I'm scared of, but it showed itself a lot in the mindfulness for me.
You said something about the core of what you need when you feel this to feel safe. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I would say the core of the work that is now more and more developing, it comes out of this panic. I remember being asked, it was in I think 20, maybe a long time ago, they said, okay, now go to a safe spot. It was in a self-compassion training. Go to a safe spot. And I felt, I don't have a safe spot. I have no idea where you guys talk about. And they were all the time speaking about safety, and I thought, so the core for me is, and I call this, is it safe enough? Is it here safe enough? I feel it's safe enough because I added the word safe enough. Because safety, my goodness, is like, but safe enough, that's, I can relate to that. So I would say the core of what I want to transport is, can you discover when you feel safe enough? And how can mindfulness help you to feel safe enough? So that's my personal experience and the experience of people I work with. And if I do my hands like this, it's, we talked about it before, it's relational. What is my relation with what I notice? Because that's the first step in mindfulness. What do I notice? What do I notice? And how do I relate with that?
Would you say that, I'm talking from my own experience, but would you say that it's not only what's happening inside, but that the one who's holding the group, the leader, that can name out, maybe you feel safe, maybe you don't feel as safe, maybe you feel scared, just to name that this can be in the group, to speak out, that has an important impact on you not feeling isolated, different, shameful, that is named.
Yeah. Like you spread your hands and you feel like it's because one of the books of Peter Levine, he wrote, he developed Somatic Experiencing, SE. It's the unspoken voice. Huh? So that's, I have to think about it. Yes, I agree with you. What I do since I did Somatic Experiencing myself, the training, is I ask people, before we do anything, I ask, what do you need to feel safe? And how do people notice that you feel safe enough? Huh? I will say safe enough. So that's, well, like you said, it's like addressing the issue that's in the room, and that many people are saying like, I never ask myself the question. But if you ask me the question, I say yes, and the reason I ask the question is, if you don't feel safe enough here, you're not able to listen right, you all the time look at the door to get out, basically. Or there are many symptoms with that. And yes, I say it, and to add something more about safety, feeling safe, there are a lot of triggers for feeling not safe or feeling safe. What the ones we discussed is the others in the room. So if the trainer, people with the issue with safety, which is often related to trauma, and especially developmental trauma, because mindfulness is relational. So imagine you are in the pandemic and you feel so alone, and you see the advertisement of the mindfulness and you think like, oh yeah, maybe it can help me to relax. So then you enter the room, or you maybe talk before to the lady or the woman, and then you enter the room and you feel, oh my gosh, I felt so safe alone. And now I don't feel so safe anymore with all these people. And then starts the issue that's not so often address the issue of, I felt safe on my own, but I feel the longing to connect. And that's the Lemonist card that's all the time in the room. And I feel, as a trainer, if you can give people the sense of safety, you have to address it. Like you say, address it. It's in the room. Because people who have an issue with safety will scan the room all the time. And they will say, can I trust this teacher? And some will be very polite, and they hope that the teacher will trust them, or will say, you're a good practitioner. So there are so many layers to this issue. But I think the most important as a teacher that you realize someone who comes to me, who has an issue with safety, feels most safe alone, mostly. And if the agony is so strong that you feel like, I have this cry for help, despite my fear, I go there. I go into this training. Then it's so important that the teacher addresses this issue. So then somebody can say, I remember, I would say, I need to know that the door is open. Or I need to look at the door. Or I would say as a participant, I need that somebody is honest with me. Especially people with safety and trauma underneath, they smell if the teacher is authentic or not. They smell it. So yeah, you notice when I say this already now, it has so many layers, and yeah, it has to be addressed.
I think it's interesting what you say, because this that you feel most safe alone, I have this is my experience, but maybe many people think, oh, you're safe with the other. That's like the normal, not traumatized person who thinks that's safe, but that's the totally reverse. So that's very, I think this is something that people generally don't really understand about, because it's normal to cry for help. If you're traumatized, you learn that didn't help. So you're safe alone.
And I think it's good to address it for people who listen, to address it, to tell something about the autonomic nervous system. And I will do that in the training, of course, because you could say, I say now, a mindfulness training is a training for the autonomic nervous system. Because if you speak about trauma, like you said, trauma happens like say, a traumatic event is overwhelming your nervous system. It's too much, too big. So it's too much, basically. So the nervous system is activated and it mobilizes itself to try, because you feel threatened. I feel threatened. Many people at the moment feel threatened. And if you feel threatened, our biological response to that is, look where I can find safety. And that means you cut the connection. You go in fight, flight, and when that's not working, you go in freeze. And if you are in fight or flight or in freeze, you feel maybe safe because you can do something, but you cut off the connection. And that's what you addressed. because then you feel safe. You say, I'm not with those people who scare me. And many people live their lives like that all the time without realizing, because they work very hard, they perform, and they don't need anybody. And people say like, wow, you're successful. Wow. You're so, and you're not dependent on others. And deep down is such a fear for being close. And I agree. The one thing that is underestimated, if you give a mindfulness training and people come there will be people in the room who have an issue with being close. There will be people who feel like, who will check out all the time. And my experience is most people will have an issue with coming close with their own feelings and share that in a group. And it has to be addressed like we do now. I didn't learn that in my mindfulness training. I learned it in the trauma healing training, and reading and understanding, I don't make a mistake. There's nothing wrong with me. The nervous system is trying to save me, but the price is high, and that's the point. The price is isolation, feeling cut off, having difficulties for intimacy, but also difficulties of relating to yourself. So the price we pay is high, and I think at the moment is the price we pay as a society as a whole. It's a constantly triggering of nervous system, and such a difficulty of relaxing the nervous system because it doesn't feel safe.
Yeah. Would you like to say something, because you said you didn't learn this in your mindfulness training? Would you like to say something about how have you your path to in your work been?
Yeah. First, I would say thanks for the question also, Camilla. I learned it the hard way. Mm. So I was the guy in the room who was activated and felt like, oh my gosh. And I remember, and Katarina, we were in the practicum in America. In America, we had, and this is an example I use in the trainings, just when I have participants in the trainings. And especially I use it about the body scan, because the body scan is a central part of the mindfulness training where I feel are many misunderstandings about. So first, I can laugh about it now. It happened to me twice, but once it happened in my training. We dedicated the whole day about the body scan. So first, the trainer, the teacher, Melissa, was guiding the body scan. And I felt all the time, oh, I have to be there. I'm not allowed to drift away. I have to be there. And I was so tense, and I was drifting away all the time, and I could not feel. And I was so tense and basically on the edge of running out of the room. And then at the end, she asked, how was the body scan? And it was a room full of psychologists, psychiatrists. And one after the other said, oh, I had a great body scan. I felt everything. I was so present all the time. And then the other, and another. And I felt smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I felt like, okay, either I leave the room or I say how I really felt. And then I said, I was drifting away all the time. I could hardly keep my focus, and I felt so tense, and I could not feel a lot of parts of the body. And many people who listen know that happened. And the teacher said, I'm so happy you say that. But interesting enough, half of the room, half of those people who wants to be mindfulness trained, they thought, a poor guy, he needs therapy. So if we speak about what is important that mindfulness trainers, teachers should know, you should know something about the nervous system. You should know something about dissociation. And you should know something about that it's normal that it happens, that people can't control that, and that you have to be clear as a mindfulness teacher, what is your intention? What is your own idea about, for example, the body scan? If your hidden agenda is, yeah, we have to be present, and yeah, you drift away, but you have to be present. If that's your agenda, yeah, you know what happens. Then people who drift off feel that they do something wrong. And then the whole thing of dissociation and drifting away, it's never addressed. So I would say, like, I learned it the hard way. I was with a lot of very known teachers when I was activated, and I said, like, I feel so scared. Peter, go and sit on the cushion and just observe it. Which is another chapter in training if you do the sitting meditation. And for people with a history of trauma, it's the worst thing you can say. Because what did I do? I went back on the cushion and tried again. Failed again. Tried again. Failed again. And what happened is what we just spoke before, my isolation was growing. From the outside, I looked very still. And on the inside, I was frozen. I was cut off from myself, cut off from others, and I was in deep despair. And that was just the same what was happened in my life when I was small. So that's re-traumatization, and that's what you don't want to happen. But if you don't know how the nervous system works, with all the best intention, you let people hang out there, and especially people with a history of trauma are very pleasing, and they will do anything of the book. And you think, like, oh, they are good students. Does it make sense a bit?
Absolutely. I was in the same room when you talked about United States. My thing is not hyper, it's more hypo.
Yeah.
So I was one of those in that group. I didn't feel my body, that I would never say this. I didn't feel anything, but I would never say this if it's not addressed.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you know that, Katarina, I would feel hyper and hypo.
Yeah, both.
It
my
goes
mostly
up and
hypo.
down. It's up, and for people who listen and think, what are these words? It's like when the nervous system is activated, which basically is a normal state for many people. It's hyper. It means you're activated hyper. You're very, it's this the hyper. But the point is, if you're hyper for a whole day, for example, the nervous system, it's too much, so it goes in collapse, and it's like numbing. Then you don't feel anything anymore, and that's a saving strategy, because it's like it's too much, and often it goes And the point is, and that's what we teach, I think, in mindfulness, you go up and down, but you never end in the middle. Your nervous system isn't flexible anymore. And that's what mindfulness can bring to people with a history of trauma, that the nervous system gets flexible. But it only happens, I see more and more, if first the issue of safety is addressed, if the issue of safety is the undercurrent in the teaching. And for me, there are three important elements for safety. First is context. It's what we do now. Give context. Why do we do this? Why is the nervous system so important? How does the brain work? That's context. And if your context in your way of working is clear, it relaxes a bit. And the second thing is choice. If you feel I have a choice, we just spoke about the body scan. If you feel like it's okay when I drift off, and when I drift off, I have a choice. I can drift off even further, or I can come back. Just choice. Yeah. And choice is so important because, especially with trauma, you felt you had no choice. You felt helpless. So choice is very important. Choice in wording. What kind of words do you use? Choice in, are you allowed to move? So important. And the third part of safety is connection. And that's what we speak about all the time in this hour. It's like, do you want to connect? Are you willing to connect? How far can you connect? Can you connect with yourself? Can you connect with others? And I use the model I developed, and I call that secure base. So especially in mindfulness, people need to feel a secure base in their body if possible. They need a secure base with the teacher and the others. And then you can start slowly to allow the feelings. And then, Katarina, you said, to finish that up, then safety becomes in the here and now. And that's the real safety. And it's not the isolation that was your safety in trauma. Then you can learn, I can feel safe in the here and now. I can regulate my feelings, of the feelings, in the here and now, in connection with myself and others. And I think that can be a game changer for people with a history of trauma if they do a mindfulness training and they experience that. Makes it sense? Can you follow me?
Yes,
Absolutely.
And I would say that if the teacher who's have the capacity to hold the group also can name out things, how it can be, you feel or don't feel, but also that you feel that she and he contain himself and you feel seen. It can be non-verbally, but you feel seen and felt.
Yeah.
That's the key for safety.
Yeah, sure.
Person understand by see. I think about like Daniel Siegel talks about like being seen and felt. That's a key for me. Yeah,
and that's especially, I agree, especially with developmental trauma. And it's not so much addressed. It's very often forgotten. Often we speak about shock trauma. Because especially with developmental trauma, you never learn to feel safe with others. Or never is not true, but there is an issue with feeling safe with others. And if the teacher can hold himself or herself, that's very important. because if you have a history of trauma, you hardly feel what you said before. You can't feel your body, because in the body are so many feelings. You don't want to go there. So you don't have an anchor in your body. So if you go out, you will look at the teacher and feel, are you safe for me? And maybe you grab, can I hold? And a lot of teachers get scared and they say, go back to the cushion. And I feel when people are scared and they need you as a teacher, you have to be available. And I see, like you said, Katarina, I will say then, and I do that, happens often. I say to people, I'm here, I see you. Or I would say like, I'm happy that you're here, just the way you are. And then they can start to feel themselves. And then it's a new experience in the relation. It's totally new, and they need time for that. And especially with the need to be seen, you have to do that in titration, because it can be easily too much. So, yes, there is a need to be seen, and there is a nervous system that needs to hold all those new feelings, because otherwise it bounces back and people run out of the room or they cut off. So it's a very subtle process. But I think teachers who listen, you as a teacher have to realize, can I hold what's in the room? But most important, can I digest my own things that are triggered when the whole thing is happening? Because if you sit there and you think like, oh, now I get triggered, so let's do another exercise. People will feel that you're not comfortable. And I think the most difficult point for a lot of teachers is, when I feel scared myself, when I don't know what to do, how can I hold the space? How can I hold myself? How do I do that? And I think that's a training in its own, but it's a very important part, and it's not so much addressed, because with trauma sensitive, people tend to say like, what do you do with the participants? And it's not so much addressed, what do you do yourself when you're scared?
Yeah, so as teachers, we become like external anchors for people in the group. So how we hold ourselves
Exactly.
are very important. Yeah.
And it's I feel as a teacher, you have to realize that all these projections and counterprojections, you have to be very clear about it, and also to be clear that people who are activated, and when the trauma comes up in the present moment, they can't orient, so you have to help them to orient first. You have to be there for them and say, I'm here, can you see me? Can you hear me? There are skills to learn, but the main thing is, are you willing to be an anchor? And when you're willing to be an anchor, then people can feel, oh, there's somebody there, because we forgot I think we forget it so often. As small babies, we cannot survive without someone else.
It may make me think of also the mirror neurons, because when
It is.
Yeah, exactly. So when we are able to hold ourselves as teachers, we help in a way via the mirror neurons help other people to be with themselves as well.
Yeah, because again, this has a lot of layers, but in the experience a lot of people had with the developmental trauma is that their father or mother or caregiver could not hold themselves.
Mm.
So the father or mother or caregiver needed a child to feel safe. And the child felt, hey, here's something wrong.
Mm.
But as a child, you can't say like, bye-bye, father, mother, caregiver. You can't. So you have to learn to adapt a strategy. So if, and it's so important issue, if you feel that the teacher can hold himself, if the teacher says like, oof, I don't know an answer to your question. Or if you as a teacher say like, this touches me. Then in that honesty, because there is a misunderstanding about holding yourself. People think like, I cannot show emotions. I cannot show that I maybe tears come. I'm not allowed. That's, I think, not true. Holding yourself means you resonate with what's there, but you don't project it on the people. And it's and Katarina, you said it also. I think for my own experience, I give you an example in my own life that's maybe very helpful, hopefully helpful. My mother was depressed, but they didn't say it like that. Eh? So I was raised in a surrounding, and she was all the time saying, oh, watch out, watch out, watch out. The world was scared. That's what I learned. And she was always like, oh, I cannot do it. I'm weak. And in the end of her life, after a few events, she would be herself and she could hold herself. And she was more satisfied than I felt for the first time. Now I can relax because she holds herself. And it was not, and that's important when you listen, we sense when somebody holds himself. I can hold myself when I speak about my mother, so don't worry. I can hold myself. And that's what you sense. You sense when what you sense when somebody holds himself, you feel safe. You say, oh, that one is safe. But that this guy is also honest about this. So, and I think that many teachers feel like I have to be professional, not showing emotions. And that's not about regulating yourself, holding yourself. Does it make sense a bit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, many issues. I mean, when we speak about this, I think we could do a year training, because I would love to do that. I said it to you, Camilla. Huh? So people who listen, yeah. I'm very willing to do a year training, and of course we do the workshop, but maybe I say a bit experience what's happening at the moment. I mostly give 6 weeks courses for people who teach mindfulness or the general public. I teach people how you can integrate this in your curriculum. There will come a trauma sensitive MBSR curriculum. So that's what I teach people. To learn this, to teach it, that needs a bit more time than 6 weeks. So, but I hope that in the workshop we will do, and where you hopefully will be there, that you can have a sense what it's about, and that I would be very honored if there are enough people to do a longer training, to especially to embody this safety, which I think is the most important.
Yeah, it sounds like you rounded it up very good. So thank you for this time together, and we are looking forward to see you in February on your birthday.
No, my birthday is on the 4th, and we see each other on the 5th.
Ah, yeah. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to say something, Katarina, to round it up? Okay.
Just thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And to speak again to the ones, maybe if you went through the whole hour, I don't know, because an hour is long to listen. I hope that maybe you skipped. That's what I do also when it's longer. You heard a few words from me. I would say, as a mindfulness teacher myself, and as you maybe a mindfulness teacher listening, realize that if you give a group, there will be people in the room who don't know how to regulate their nervous system. And if you know from yourself how to do that, you can learn that. And if you know to recognize the symptoms with your participants, I think you do them a big favor, and you do yourself a big favor. And maybe we see each other to dive in that a bit deeper. Okay. Hope to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.